Hello and welcome along to what movies I've watched in the month of January 2021. There's quite a stack here. It's been a good month. It's been a good month for watching films. I found that me and my wife have watched quite a few films. There's not much else to do in the way of the world at the minute, but there you go. So if we all keep on being safe and watching ourselves, I'm sure that the time will come when we can all go out and socialise and buy physical media from the shelves. Never mind. So this is what I've watched in the month of January 2021. The first one that me and my wife watched was another Kung Fu classic, Bruce Lee's Fist of Fury. This was his second, you can say his second proper film. I know he made films before this, but this what I would class as his second film. And it's a brilliant film. I think all of his films are good, some better than others for me. But we had a great time with this, and obviously it's fully uncut with the nunchuckers in the whole. None of his films are cut anymore, which is great. You get a lot of special features on here, but the whole premise behind this movie, I think this has got some of Bruce Lee's best acting in here, and I do think that his choreography was coming to more of a front because he was governed a little bit in The Big Boss, the movie before this, but when he came into this movie, he came, and he showed all the things that he could do, and I think that's why after this movie he became the person who was in charge of all his movies for the very brief time that he was making them, the 2 or 3 years. Okay, so that's the first one, Fist of Fury. Obviously highly recommended. And this was a first time watch. New Year's Evil. This film's from 1980, I believe. Yep. And I had heard really bad things about this. I had heard that it was just an absolutely awful film. Now, I'll give any film the benefit of the doubt. I'll go in there with fresh eyes. I won't be swayed. I mean, I will be if everybody said this is a terrible film, don't even go near it. And I'll stay away from it. But this is in the set that I'm collecting anyway, the Slasher Classics collection. So I had to have it. But anyway, the short story is, it's a brilliant film for me. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the fact that you find out who the killer is immediately. And that's great because it moves the story in a direction that you don't usually see in slasher films. Also as well, there's a band in here, or it's like an audition. Let's say it's a... So I highly recommend this. You get a lot of fun out of this, and it's an interesting take on the whole slasher, the slasher series, and I will watch it every New Year's Eve from now on. The next one was a double pack I got off my good friend Holgos73, John Hall, and he'd gifted me quite a lot of stuff, so I started watching them because especially the ones I hadn't seen before are the ones I was really interested in watching. So the first one I watched was Bliss. Now this film is from 2019 and it's directed by Joe Begos, and it is very explicit, very trippy, very odd, but it's really, really good. It really had a good time with it. And I was glad to say it is very neon. It looks good on the TV, but it's very art house in a way, but brutal, and it's hard to describe, but it's a really, really good film. This is the Australian version from Umbrella, yeah, not Umbrella. So after that I watched his next film, which is like a double bill on here. It's VFW. And to be honest, it does really look like the film from John Carpenter, Assault on Precinct 13. Even the music sounds like a John Carpenter film. And this cast that he's assembled here are brilliant. They're all old school actors who, some of them are really known for being in action films, and had a really good time with it. It's very violent, very gory, and it's a massive throwback to 80s films in general, but had a great time with this, and it's one that's really highly recommended by me. Excellent film. It's supposed to be a 4K coming out, but I don't know if the 4K will look good because it's a very dark film, it's a very neon film, it's a very gritty film, grainy. Will that transfer to 4K, or would the 4K look probably exactly the same as a Blu-ray? That's what I'm thinking. The next one was that's another one from John Hall. And this one here was one of the ones I've been wanting to see or own for quite a while, and it's The Fly 2. Now, I hadn't seen The Fly 2 since it was released in 1989. I had it probably on a VHS, and then I didn't buy it any other time. I hadn't seen it since then, and I couldn't remember that much about it, but I did really enjoy this. Certain scenes came back to me, so I didn't realise that Eric Stoltz had such dyed his hair jet black in this film, which was quite quite jarring in some scenes, but I did like it. And this must be the fully uncut version because there's a lot of gore in here, some gore that I don't even remember seeing back in the day. So maybe the one I had was a cut version, because a lot of things got cut back in the 80s and 90s on release. So highly recommend. It's not easy to get. The whole Fly thing needs to have a UK box set and get the whole thing out. I know there's one in America, but we need it as a UK one. That would be one of my favorite box sets to own if I could get it over here. Even if I could get the American one, I would love it. I'll maybe put it on my radar for this year, not with silly money, but you know. The next one was another one from John Ho, and it is The New Kids. I know this came out on 101 or 101 films, their Black Label series. This on here, the print, it's just bare bones. The print on here is absolutely brilliant. I can't fault it, and the film itself is really good. Okay, so the other thing I like about this is this slipcover on here. I just think it's absolutely brilliant. In fact, I would love to get more of these. These are the things that don't seem to be available in UK. Obviously, they're an American release, and it was region free as well. Even though it says region A, I played it on my 4K player, which is obviously region B locked. So highly recommended that one. Really good film. The next one was a film by Theodore Dryer. It was next in the series of the films that I wanted to watch by him, and it's 1924's Michael. Now this deals about an art dealer, or say an artist, who has a muse called Michael, and they have a bit of a relationship. Now the thing is, with it being in 1924, the way that this is portrayed, it's not portrayed as anything bad or anything that's quite controversial or anything that's forbidden. It's just conveyed as a bit of a sort of like a love story, which is great. But there's a lot of twists and turns to that, and it's quite gripping in a way. And as all of Theodore Dryer films are, I can get something out of it, and this one was no different. Really good and ahead of its time, and the subject matter in it is a thing that you didn't think was even a subject matter in any films of the 1920s. So this must have been groundbreaking at the time. But it looks lovely as well. It's got a new 2K restoration, and I'm going through his work and watching them chronologically and having a good time with them. And this one is no exception. It's gripping, it's different, and it's a film that you don't expect to see at that time. But that being said, it is a great film, and a one that asks a lot of questions and puts a lot of spins on this whole thing. And it's obviously there's somebody comes in as well. It's too much to sort of say in one video, but is highly recommended. The next one is another film I've been after for quite a while, and I watched quite. This is going to be the earliest one I've got of this director's work, by Akira Kurosawa, and it's Rashomon. This film, it's a great film. This I haven't watched Seven Samurai yet because that's a really long film. This was quite a short film, but it's told that there's a samurai comes, this like a bandit comes. There's a woman and her husband, and it's all about the ambush and what happens. Now, it's told from everyone's point of view, and everyone's got a different point of view, and the whole thing about this film is, without giving too much away, is who is telling the truth. You see loads of different accounts of what happened in that ambush and all their viewpoints, but you've got to decide who is telling the truth in this film. Really good, and quite clever in a way that they did that. I would have never thought of that to be done in a film. So excellent, highly recommended, as I would imagine most of Akira Kurosawa films are. I'm really starting really early in the game for me for that, but I can see from there I'm going to have a good time with his stuff. Obviously Seven Samurai is next, so I can't wait to watch that, although it's a long one. Next is another silent film, The Phantom of the Opera. I watched the 1929 version, which is it's not the fullest version, because there's a few versions on here, maybe 2 or 3, and there is a longer version, but it's not as good quality, so I went for the one that had the best quality. And it also features as well, it's got a colour sequence in it, which is pure colour. It's not a colorized version, it's a colour part in the film, which is just mad to think that this was even shot in 1925. I'd put a thing out to say that nobody was to talk about what the makeup was. So nobody had seen this. Say if you went to the cinema, you would have no clue to what you were going to see. So I'd imagine the revelation of when his mask is pulled off to see his actual face would have been something, would have had quite a massive effect back in 1925. I'll tell you that much. The next one is another Carl Theodore Dryer film, and it's called Master of the House. Now this is the first one I've watched in the box set I've got for the Carl Theodore Dryer box set from the BFI, and it's a silent film. And to be honest, when I watched it, I didn't really know what I was watching because it's got a really odd story, and I thought, is this what's this about? When I wrote up, it's actually a comedy. So when I clicked it was a comedy, the film did make a lot more sense. Basically, the premise is that there's a man, the master of the house, who comes in and he sort of demands, where's my he's not nasty, but he expects his tea on the table. He expects his wife to do everything for him. So then the wife just said it's had enough, because she's got kids to look after, she's got the house to sort out, she's got to do all this sort of donkey work. So she just says, I'm had enough of this. So the sort of, you could say the master of the house is this woman here who is, so this lady here, you could call her the master of the house because she is the original nanny of this fella when he was a kid, and she's become the nanny of their kids. So she says to her, why don't you go away, sort yourself out, and he's going to do everything for you in this house. So then she says to him, he says, where's my wife? Comes back and he says, well, my tea's not here, where's my wife, where's all my stuff that I've got, my cigars and everything. She says, oh, your wife's gone away because she's a bit under the weather, she needs to get sorted out, and you've got to do everything now. So he nearly has a breakdown doing everything. It's a really, it's an odd film, a bit like Michael. It's a film you just don't expect to be around at that time. It's a bit of a sort of life lesson for this fella. It's a really good film. So if you do watch it, go into it thinking it's a comedy. I do want to watch it again from the start to have the right mindset for it. I did like it, but I didn't get it. I didn't get how they were so, I'm not going to say they were like on him, they were on his case all the time, but I can understand why they were. But it seemed that I didn't really think at 1925 and that people had that viewpoint to sort of get the man back. I thought the man would be the master of the house at that point, and there would be no say in the matter, but obviously there was. So a really good film, really interesting as well to take that sort of slant. The next film was a film that I watched because I just refreshed myself on it. I'd seen this film a few times, but I hadn't watched it for a long time. I had to watch it because me and Jordan from Movie Worm had got ourselves together to do a shared video on Movie Worm's channel. So he invited me on to do about great performances, and he chose The Godfather Part 2. So I watched The Godfather Part 2, and predominantly just to refresh me viewpoint on how good Al Pacino was. Now, I did think he was great going in, but after watching it, I did realise how good he was. I mean, Jordan has him as his top actor, and this is his best acting performance ever in a movie, and I can understand that. It's flawless and it's sinister. He's quite brooding. He's got this whole dynamic about him which he didn't have in part 1. He goes into part 2 and he's a bit more ruthless, and it just shows you his transformation from a sort of a kid with ideas to being the boss of the whole mafiosi family is in. And it's a great performance. In fact, I do want to go back now and watch part 1 and maybe start to investigate part 3, the new version of part 3, to see if it's any better than the original part 3, which I didn't really care for, if I'm honest. But it started me thinking a bit more about Al Pacino, who I do think is a great actor. I've got a few of his films in there that I haven't really watched, like Carlito's Way. I might have to go back and revisit that. So highly recommended. And it's if you want to see that video, I'm going to link it down below. Do check it out. We had a great time with that video. The next one is a film I've been wanting my wife to watch for a long time, so I twisted her arm, and it's Train to Busan. I watched this first last year and was blown away by it, and I couldn't wait to watch it again. So I was glad to see this with my wife. That was her first time, and she thought it was a great film. It's one of them ones where you think, is it just a zombie film? But there's a lot more to it than that. The young girl in here she's absolutely amazing. In fact, I think the bloke in there towards the end, it gets without going to any spoilers, it becomes it's quite an emotional film in respect of what it's dealing with. This young girl stuck on this train full of zombies with his father, he hasn't been there for her in the early days, formative years, and he's trying to put that right. There's a lot of things going on you can take from this film, but highly recommend it. It is probably one of the top 3 zombie films of all time. The next one is a film that was released by Blue Underground, and it's 1982's Vigilante. Now this is it's a great film. It's a classic, and it's presented in it's just amazing 4K. It's never looked as good, it's never sounded as good. It's a brilliant film from start to finish. It's just basically like a rerun of Death Wish 2, but for me, I just love the actors in it. I love the thing about them trying to get, the vigilantes are a gang. They're trying to get these people who the law have just let off with a bit of corruption and a bit of money. So they've just turned a blind eye to the fact of what these people did, and they've just went back out to sort of get street justice, which it's just a great film. I've always liked it, but this version here, I had to get it because I'm collecting all the Blue Underground ones now, and it's one of their great titles that they have, and it's not available in the UK, unfortunately. So I watched another couple now on streaming. So the next one that me and my wife watched, come on Sky Movies, and watched in ultra high definition. It was quite a good presentation on there, because sometimes ultra high definition on there gives you a little taste of what you could see on the 4K. And it is 2020, Bad Boys for Life. It might be 2019 actually, but quite a good film. I mean, it is what it is. It's got its imperfections, but as a film, it does what it says. We know about the other Bad Boys films, and my wife's a big fan of the Bad Boys films, so we're glad to see this one, and so is she. So it made us want to watch the other ones. But it's not a bad film. Will I get it on 4K? Yes, if it's cheap enough, and yes, if it's got a slip. So after that, I've been doing a lot of to and fro in different genres and all that, which has been great. I did enjoy the fact that I haven't just watched one particular type of thing. I think last January, I watched a lot of silent films, which is great. And funny enough, this is another silent film which I've been putting on the shelf for a long time, and it is the next in the list of the Theodore Dryer films. Now, if you think about it, the last one before this was a comedy. The one after that is another one that's like a vampire film. Now this one here is dealing with the sort of, you can say, the trial of Joan of Arc, and I watched it, and the performance of the lady in this, who is if you can see a picture of her, the film is quite haunting, and the performance from this girl is just unreal. And the thing I found about this film is that usually what it is you've got a close up of somebody's face. There's the roof coming off even more, and you see a lot of her face in this film, and the other people in it, you see them all. You don't see any long shots in this film, or very few, and it's a stellar performance from this lady here, who I'll try and find the name out. So her name was Maria Falconetti. And yeah, it's not a hard watch. I can't believe it's a PG. There's some quite it's got quite brutal at times with this whole thing of this trial of Joan of Arc. I keep meaning to look online to see if the trial of Joan of Arc is the same as the movie. I think it is to a certain extent. And imagine Joan of Arc was only 19 when she died anyway. So this is a story about that whole trial and what happened in that, and it's a great performance. Obviously, it's one of these films it's regarded as one of the best films ever made, and I would go along with that. The performances here and the faces that it's got, everyone's got an interesting face, and it's very, very watchable. But do know that it's quite not extreme, but it is quite emotional for most of the film, and the performances, like I say, are exceptional. So far, the Theodore Dryer films have not let me down. The next one is another one I've been asking my wife to watch for a while, so she relented, and it's Grizzly. Now this is one that I got off my good friend John Hall, and this version is by Multicom TV, which I've never heard of actually, and it's got two versions on here, and I think one of the ones has been just kind of a little bit DNR'd, the one I saw, and then one of them hasn't been. So the other one I didn't watch would have been a bit more sharper, but a bit more scratchy and a bit more grainy. So I should have watched that one, but then I'd say it doesn't matter, because my wife as well did say that it's a lot more gory than you would imagine a kind of kids film would be. It's just basically jaws were closed. That's the best way to describe it. But it's a really good film. Really do enjoy that film, and it's going to get another re-release, and hopefully it might get a 4K eventually. That would be great. The next film was one of the ones I watched from my slasher classics collection, and it is Moon in Scorpio. Now, I was talking to my good friend Carl from Carlinio 9's channel. I'll leave a link down to his channel. And he was asking me what do I think about this film. Now, I love the fact that I love this cover. I love the fact that it's on a boat. I love the fact of what it promised. But what it delivered was a lot less short of what I thought it was going to be. But I do like the film on the fact that it's really, really bad. And there's a lot of, if you go and look into the extras about it, you will find out why it was so bad, and why the film, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And the whole the things that it's supposed to resolve in the film, like, you know, about the murderers on the boat, why is that happening, who's doing it, what is all about, it's got a lot of red herrings in here that just don't resolve properly. They don't make any sense. But for that reason, I kind of quite like it. Is it a film that I recommend? Well, I was saying to Carl, who thinks he's thinking about picking it up, I said, get it for that reason, Carl, but don't expect it to be brilliant, and also get it cheap. And I would imagine this one will go quite cheap, because it doesn't really live up to anything, if I'm honest. It's a really odd, strange film. Looks really good. The premise of it is good to have a serial killer on a very small yacht boat with only a few people on it. Who is the person? Is a person doing it? What's it all about? But you don't really find out properly. Anyway, that's not gonna spoil it for you. You're just gonna know that it's just an odd film. But I did like it, strangely enough. The next one we watched was on Sky Movies, but it was on the ultra high definition version of it, which looked really good actually. The skin colours and the skin tones in here and the colours of the movie looked good. So in 4K, I would imagine it would look brilliant. It is the best of the three films, and this is my wife's old DVD. Bad Boys. So this I would get this on 4. Excuse me. I would get this on 4K. It's a great film, and to me, it is a really good, enjoyable film. I do like all the performances. It's probably the funniest one in here as well. I do like all the characters in this. I like all the whole shouting between them and the whole banter. It's absolutely brilliant. So I was glad to actually watch them, even though I watched them 3, then 1, then 2. So before we watched 2, I slipped on Plan 9 from Outer Space. I just felt like watching it for some reason. It is one of the worst films. It's probably the worst film ever made in history. If you haven't seen it, you've got to see it. Now, this is the American Blu Ray, which does play on my 4K player, so it's region free, even though it says region A on the back. And the thing about it is that it's got a colorized version and also a black and white version. Obviously, it's a black and white film that's been colorized, but for some reason, I don't know why, the colorization on this one is done that well. You would think it was a color film. Now, you don't hear that many times in colorization. It's usually, you can see it a mile off. But this, and the print on it is stunning. So I do really highly recommend that version of the film to see it in colour. I don't know why it works, but it really does for me, because I always go for the black and white film. And even when I watched a bit of the black and white film on here, it didn't really look as good. It's odd, but it's obviously a great movie, and I recommend it very highly. And if you want to see the worst film ever made, this is it. So, and I think this goes quite cheap on eBay. Not a bad, and it's good. I think you get some extras on it as well. Yes, you got a commentary, Ed Wood's home movies, rare Ed Wood commercials, and pop-up trivia subtitles. And it's directed by Ed Wood, who was basically the worst director. I'm going to be a bit unfair by saying he did try his best, but unfortunately failed miserably on every attempt. The next one was Bad Boys 2. I enjoyed this. It was a bit long, I thought. It's still good. It was very, very watchable. I tell you what, the stunts and the special effects on here car chase. They had a car chase. I don't know how they could have done this car chase. I couldn't even remember that it was this good. When I watched it, the amount of damage that was done in most of these sort of car chases and helicopter stuff, it's just really action packed. I didn't realize it was like that, so it's highly recommended for that. And like I say, the budget must have been spent on smashing cars up. So the next one I watched was last night, and it was Harold Lloyd's 1928 his last silent film, Speedy. Now this deals with Harold Lloyd, who plays Harold Speedy Swift, and his girlfriend, and he is just someone who's he gets into jobs and he always gets kicked out of jobs for just doing stupid things, and I think he likes betting, and it goes against him most of the time. So he loses all his jobs, and he goes and takes his girlfriend to Coney Island on the fun fair, and it's absolutely brilliant. It kind of comes alive at that point. And also, really weirdly enough, when it says at the back here, I looked on it because I thought a 12 for one of these films, why would it be a 12? It says mild slapstick violence and rude gesture references. Now I thought, 1928, rude gestures, what's all that about? So when I was watching it, there's a bit where he goes into he looks in a funny mirror, like a fairground mirror, and what happens is so when he stood in the mirror, he does this to himself. Now I looked it up, and it said that this is probably, it says there, the finger. During the Coney Island sequence, at one point, Speedy gives the finger to himself while looking in the distorted mirror. This may be the earliest motion picture reference to that. So I found that quite interesting, actually. You just don't think of that thing happening in 1928, a film. Was it left in the original cut? It doesn't mention anything about it. But wow, what's all that about? So I'm just rounding up what I've watched at the end of the month. I've tagged it onto this video, so that's why this enormous video. The next one was I watched an unboxing of this special edition in Keith Euphoria Pictures channel, which I'll put a link to down below. And it is Oblivion. I haven't been a greatest fan of Tom Cruise over the years. I found his stuff to be, not my cup of tea. But I've got to admit, recent times I've started to enjoy his work, and I've gone back over now a bit. There's some films I wouldn't go near, but this one here, I thought was a really good sort of, I'm going to say it's a sci-fi film, of course it is, but it's got a kind of twist to it, and it's got a really strange way that it does this film. It's not as cut and dry as you would think it is, but it's very, very good. And I watched it on ultra high definition on Sky, and it was a lovely picture as well, because Keith's got it on 4K, and his 4K says looks interesting. So I think I would probably go for that. I'll probably buy that, but at a lower price. The weather's atrocious outside, by the way. The next one that I watched was a great film, one of my favourites of all time, The Video Dead. This is the Shout Factory Region 8 Locked release double pack, and you get the DVD and the Blu Ray with that. And this film is cheap as chips. It's great though. For some reason, even though it's ultra low budget, I've always liked this. I got this in the video shop and I had it on VHS. It was hard to find on DVD, and this is an American import. This really needs to get Arrow or 88 Films or even 101 to take notice of this film and put it out, because people love this film. There's a big market for The Video Dead, and yes, it is ultra low budget. Some of the effects are laughable, but the zombies in it are really absolutely brilliant, I find. So what it is, it's basically this, somebody gets delivery of this haunted or possessed TV that keeps playing this clip of this vintage horror zombie film on a loop, and when it gets played, the zombies come out of the telly, and it's crazy. And so I watched that because I hadn't watched it for a long time, and I thought that the picture quality in here was quite grainy. It is a bit grainy, but it's a lot better than I remembered it on maybe on my 4K TV. It just has that little bit of an upscaling, but I do really recommend The Video Dead, and there is a lot of love for this film, and everybody who knows it and who has seen it do like this film. The next one was one that me and my wife watched, and it was on Amazon Prime. And it was in 4K. I thought it was a lovely picture, so it was a 4K presentation. It was really, really nice, actually. And it is the Dave Bautista film, a recent one from 2020, My Spy. And it is what it is. It's quite a humorous film. I think it's Kristen Shaw or Schnar. She's in it as well, who I think is brilliant. And this movie is quite amusing for what it is. It's just a sort of an average sort of film, but we like this Dave Bautista. I think he's all right, so we watched it. My wife wanted to watch it. We did have a good time with it, actually, and I don't know how if you can get it on physical media in the UK, actually, and if you can't, probably only on DVD. It's one of the ones that doesn't seem to make it over the pond on 4K. Although if you do get it in 4K, the 4K on Amazon Prime looks stunning, and I do think Amazon Prime have a better presentation on. I don't think Sky Movies ultra high definition is 4K. It's nice, but it just hasn't got that extra thing that Amazon Prime deliver, which is great. I keep forgetting about Amazon Prime. I should look at their stuff more than I do. The last thing that I watched before I go into my top 3, which I recorded the other day, is watched on the 31st of January, was from my recent box set, Gamera. Now, my wife said she's a big fan of Godzilla films, and even though they were like hokey and a little bit how can I say, like daft, she does like the Godzilla films. But I said to her, I says, "Well, watch Gamera now." And she says, "Well, what's Gamera?" And I told her it's like a kind of I'm going to say like a tortoise or a turtle. So she wasn't really sold on that idea. She said, "I'm not really thinking." Oh, the disc's downstairs. Actually, the disc is still in the player. Can you believe it? I'll tell you why in a minute. Why that's still in there. I don't usually do that, mine. I must have fell asleep. In fact, I did fall asleep watching the extras. And nice to see the Frighteners is coming out in 4K, I believe. That's a day one purchase. Love that film. I've got it on special edition DVD with an extra cut or something on it, which I'm very glad to be updating that. Although I do think that sometimes at the minute, the Battle Royale for the 4K of Arrow's Battle Royale 4K, I do think it looks brilliant, but for £60, it's a little bit extreme. I'm going to say Arrow need to bring their prices down a little bit. I know it's going to be an amazing box set. I've got the other box set, but when that came out, it was only £25. I know it was a long time ago, but I do think they're kind of ramping up the prices a little bit too high. And also as well, if you're going to release anything on a 4K, and I don't care how many times you released it, you need to put a slipcase on that. Are you watching Old Boy? Anyway, back to this. So we put it on, we watched it. It's in black and white. It's the first one, 1965, and we had an absolute blast with this film. It's so good. It isn't, I'm going to say it's not, it is a bit childish, and it has got some elements in it, which is Deborah, my wife Deborah, she wanted to strangle, not being nasty, but she wanted to strangle the young kid in it. He was quite annoying, but in a good, I found him quite, what was he called? Kenny, or Kenny, as he used to say like 1,000 times in the film. But the whole this is obviously the formation of Gamera, and it's the first one in a series of 12 films, and it looks pretty good, a bit grainy, but I don't mind that. I would have preferred it in colour, because I think the ones in colour look really sharp, but it's so good. It was such a watchable film. I did watch there was an extra on here that plays you the theme tune from a band called The Moons, Gamera, spelled with 2 M's, from the American release. It's like a theme tune that they made, and they put it on, and it was so 60s and surf music. Well, I don't know what possessed my wife, but she started dancing in a 60s fashion, which I've never seen before in my life. I wish I got some video of it. And that was about 2 days ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. In fact, I told everyone at work, you wouldn't believe what Deborah's doing. She was dancing in the 60s style to Gamera. I think they thought I'd lost my mind as well. Anyway, the short story is I can't wait to watch these ones. and I do highly recommend, if anyone's thinking about it, maybe it's a bit pricey at the minute, I do think it's going to come down. I snapped it up because I didn't want to be left on the shelf, funny enough, and I wanted to have it in my possession. But I would recommend this to anybody. You do get lots of stuff on this. You get another cut, a completely different cut of Gamera, the American version, which looks really good. I know that Leon from Leon Talks Films, links down below, has talked very highly about Gamera, the Invincible, I think it's called. But highly recommended, and I am really interested in watching the rest of these films. So that brings me on to my top 3 recommendations for the month of January 2021. The number 3 is a one that I was recommended to watch by the channel Movie Worm, and that's run by Jordan, and he invited me onto his channel to do a shared video, which I'll link down below. And one of the movies that he talked about that he wanted me to sort of speak about would be Training Day. Now I knew about Training Day, but I never went near it because I mistakenly thought that it wasn't the type of movie that I was really interested in. I thought it was going to be more like a sort of Bad Boys kind of thing, which I do like Bad Boys, as you've seen. I've watched all the Bad Boys this month, but I just don't know why I didn't engage in it. But when I did engage in it, I was blown away, and really by Denzel Washington's performance as this character. So Training Day, what can I say? But it's just a really, really good film. It does have a lot of things about the fact is that there's so much you can talk about in this, and obviously if you go and watch that video you'll find out all our views on the Training Day film. But all I can say is that I was blown away by Denzel Washington's performance in this, and Ethan Hawke as well. The whole thing behind the movie, you don't really know what's going on too much until halfway through the film, where it sort of like clicks in what it's all about and what Denzel Washington's character is all about. So but I'll leave it there in case you haven't seen it, but I do highly recommend you go and see it, because I had a mistaken view of it, and my view was wrong basically, and I was really glad that Jordan had picked this film so I could watch it, and I had a blast with it. So Training Day, number 3. So number 2 is a film that I've been getting a few times to say to my wife, you've got to watch this film, and I hadn't watched it for the longest time, even though I did buy it a long time ago on physical media, as you'll see from the release I've got here. And so eventually she says, "Oh, go on, then we'll watch it." She thought it was going to be something that was really gory and really sort of over the top with violence, and it's not. It's just a really solid film. But on my rewatch of it, when I hadn't seen it for a long time, I was really blown away by this film, how good it was, especially the score. So it is 1976's Assault on Precinct 13. Now this is the second sight limited edition box set, and weirdly enough, although it's been on the shelf for that length of time, it's a lovely set. I can't knock it. Well, I can knock it because it's very hard and tough and durable. So the set itself is a really, really good set, which I've got R cards in there, which I haven't opened because, well, I'm not going to do anything with them, so why would I open them? So in there you've got the Blu Ray, which is in really good Blu Ray, really good presentation. You've also got the soundtrack, which I totally forgot was in there. Now the main thing when I watched this was it's in 5.1 surround. I was blown away by how good the soundtrack sounded on my system. It's just my soundbar, but it picked it up really well, and it comes and it's thumping. It's got like a memorable soundtrack. It's easily up there with Halloween. Obviously John Carpenter, when he directs a film, he writes the soundtrack as well, and the soundtrack on this is stunning. You hear it every now and again. I was watching a TV series called Dead Pixels that's just come back out for a second series, which I really enjoy. And the end credit theme is the theme from Assault on Precinct 13, and also a song that I've got in the car by Bomb the Bass called Mega Blast is a remix of Assault on Precinct 13. So there you go. So I highly, highly recommend this film. It's not that violent, which used to put me off it, believe it or not. It used to be in the throes of the whole Carpenter boom in the 80s. When I watched this one, I thought, it's just not as good, because I was expecting a lot more gore and a bit more violence and special effects. It is quite violent, but it's more story-led, and the characters in here are just absolutely brilliant, and every character in here is memorable. And the little girl with the ice cream, you forgot to put my sprinkles on. Wow, what a scene. So I really urge you to get this. And I don't know, this is obviously long out of print, but it's a beautiful set. If you can ever get it, I really recommend you getting this set if possible. That's number 2. So number 1 is, keeping on the Carl Theodore Dryer front, I had to watch them in chronological order. Wow, I can't even say it. And so the next one on my list was going to be the 1932 film Vampyr. So I put it on and I watched it, which fair enough. There you go. That's the film Vampyr. Now I watched it on YouTube because I was going to go and buy it, but it's only really available on Criterion, and it's really like crazy money, £30 easy. And I wasn't going to buy it before I tried it. Now I'm instantly going to buy it when I can. I don't think I'll go for £29. If I can get about £20, I'll be more than happy. But this film is absolutely stunning. I've never seen anything like it. From 1932, basically, David Lynch has been transported back in time to 1932 and he's made a horror film. That's basically what this is. It's not really like any other Carl Theodore Dryer. It's movies. It's, for me anyway, the ones I've seen, they're more, say, character driven and less horror movies. I don't think he's done any horror movies, or I didn't think he had. But this one here is very it's not even a straightforward film. It's very David Lynch like. It's this fella who's wandering through this film. He seems like a bit of a if I can say the word, it'll be great if I can say it in the world. He'd be a stumbling somnambulist. Look that one up. And he just seems to navigate this film by just wandering around and being involved in these set pieces, which follows vampirism in this town where he's at. And it's the version I watch, which I'll link down below. It's a talkie, but it's nearly as silent. There's hardly any speaking in it, and it's in German with subtitles, but it's so atmospheric. But the picture quality was a little bit blurry, so I went back to watch. There's another better one on there, which I think is a Criterion version, but it's got like a soundtrack on it, and it hasn't got the it's as if they made it silent and they put some music over the top of it. I didn't really care for it that much, so the one I'm going to link down there is the one that I think is more like a definitive version. You'll see it, you'll understand what I mean. It's not a long film, but I can't believe how good that film was. I mean, I'm having great fun with all the Carl Theodore Dryer films at the moment. I've enjoyed every single one I've had, but this one here was it was a massive revelation for me. I just did not expect this film to be anywhere near what it was. Some of the set pieces, the sort of imagery, the framing of things, the strangeness, the oddities, the fact that he's witnessing himself buried in a coffin. You can't really explain it. It's really like a David Lynch film, and I would imagine that David Lynch will be a fan of this movie and this director, because you can just see so many Lynchisms in this movie. Okay, so that's what I've watched for this month. Thanks very much for watching. And I know it's been a bit of a long one, but I've had quite a few things to excuse me. I've had quite a few things. So thanks very much for watching. I know it's been a bit of a long one, but January for me, I usually always seem to watch a stack of films in January. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because it's a bit of a dead month, and obviously this time within the world it is really more of a dead month because there's just nothing open. There's nowhere to go apart from sitting in your car and getting a cup of coffee and talking to the camera. Okay, thanks very much for watching. I appreciate that, and you take care, and I will see you on the next video.